Hello, thank you very much for checking out the video. Welcome to a demo on this pedal. So my name's Charles, I work with WM Guitars, and they have supplied me with an awesome pedal to check out today, which is the DOD Gonkulator ring mod. It's a reissue from the 90s, and there's a load of cool features with this. It's a hybrid pedal, so it has a distortion, and it's also a ring mod as well, so it's a distortion pedal and a ring mod at the same time. What's really cool about it is that neither of those effects have been compromised. So normally with hybrid pedals you tend to get like a featured one and then another one that's kind of like, yeah, this is here as like an extra, or it sounds really good with it but not on its own. This sounds great as a standalone distortion and as a standalone ring mod. So I really like this pedal. It's a lovely one to use for me, at least personally for me. Now, pedal sounds are subjective, so I'm going to go through it and I'm going to play each little bit. We'll talk about signal chain in a second, and we'll talk about construction. But before that, I just wanted to chat about this little thing here. So this is the Ernie Ball Volt. This is what I'm using to power the Gonkulator today. Now, it's a really, really cool little power supply, very solid construction. I would not want to drop that on my foot, but it's a very small footprint, which means that if you're building a really small pedal board, or like, a nice compact one for travel, for some gigs and stuff like that, and you don't want to bring like a mega rig with you, this is a very, very handy thing to have. You'll be able to stick that anywhere on your board and it'll be really solid. And yeah, it provides 4 outputs with these tiny cables, and those outputs are 300 milliamps each of isolated power, or 9 volt DC. So it's really, really handy to have. Anyway, let's quickly get on to the Gonkulator now. So as I mentioned, it's a distortion and ring mod hybrid, so it's both effects in one. You can blend either one in, so you can have just the ring mod on its own if you don't like the distortion element, or you can add the distortion in as well. I'll be demonstrating both, but before that, let's get into the construction. Using aluminium chassis. It's not too heavy, not too light. So if you drop it, it's probably not going to break into a million pieces, and I really like that, so it feels like nice and solid. However, it's not like you're going to pick it up and you're going to put it on your board and then everything's going to weigh a ton, because those things can get heavy. But one thing I do look out for universally on all pedals is the switch quality. So let's do a quick test on that now. And you heard that sound. That's a good quality switch right there. And you see a really nice bright blue LED to show exactly when it's engaged. This is really, really cool to have, because especially if you're on a dark stage or something like that, or a dark rehearsal room or anything, it can be really annoying when you're like, okay, what pedal's on where? So it's really nice to have like a nice bright, I'm on, sort of light. Now, this is true bypass, so it does not color the sound, so I'm just going to roll the volume all the way up on my guitar, and you can see, like, it's, there's no coloring of the sound or anything like that. So let's quickly go for the signal chain. So guitar, into Gonkulator, into a Helix, so the Line 6 Helix, but this is emulating a sort of like a Fender Deluxe reverb sort of thing. And then straight into my desk, into my PC. So it sounds complicated, but basically I'm trying to do this as if you were just going to buy a pedal and plug it into a standard sort of like clean amp. So if you're going to plug this into a Fender amp with a little bit of reverb, this is kind of what it would sound like. So let me play it without the Gonkulator engaged, so you can hear what my guitar signal is before I do anything with it with the Gonkulator. So, very standard sort of clean sound, there's not really much effects. I said like a tiny amount of spring reverb, that's it, okay? Now, let's quickly get into what this sounds like with just the distortion. As I mentioned, it's actually a really cool distortion pedal on its own. Have a little listen, at least in my opinion. So this is just with the distortion. So the frequency and the ring mod are turned both down. So you got gain, distortion, output knobs on the top, and on the bottom you got the frequency and the ring. So these are like the ring mod ones, and this is distortion, and then it's the output on its own on the side. So the output I've got pretty much rung all the way up to 11. Well,
These go to 11.
up to as high as it will go. Distortion and gain pointing around the same sort of thing, around like that sort of like 1, 2 o'clock sort of thing, sort of like 45 degrees that way. So they're not sixth, but I like that. I like a little bit extra gain, so I'm going to crank it up a little bit more. Let's have a little listen and see what you think. So yeah, for just the distortion pedal on its own, it's got a really nice sort of like warm distortion sort of thing, reminding me sort of like the EL34 style circuits from like amps and everything. Listeners, and like it's got like that sort of like that warmer sort of tone to it in terms of the distortion circuit. I really like it, really like it. So let's have a little listen to what it sounds like when I start to blend in this ring mod. So first of all, let's talk about what ring mod is. So everyone kind of knows what distortion is. It just adds loads of gain to your signal and literally distorts it. So with the ring mod though, what it does is it kind of like runs another signal in parallel to it, into your normal signal. And as you hear, I'm gonna turn the ring mod all the way up. And you'll hear it's going to actually change the signal now, and you'll be able to hear it quite prominently. You'll hear like a little cycle hum. Maybe you can hear that. And the frequency is basically like tuning that other signal. You can kind of like, if you listen to the background, you can kind of get a little bit of Doctor Who on the go. Not that many good at playing this thing like that, but yeah, that's kind of how it sounds. Now, if we actually like just hear what it sounds and what it does to the guitar circuit, so I've left the distortion on the same setting, so I'm just adding the ring mod in now. I've put the ring mod on full, so we can hear exactly what it sounds like and how it saturates the sound. So it's definitely one of those sort of like acquired taste sounds on at its full potential. But if you just like kind of blend it into the signal a little bit, so I'm just going to six it. So it's going to be right bang on in the middle. So not full, just bang on in the middle. Have a listen to what it sounds like now. It's really cool when you just blend in a bit of it. The thing what I kind of dislike about some ring modulators that I've encountered in the past, not naming any names, but sometimes it's kind of like an all or nothing thing, where you flick the pedal on and you're in a tonal wonderland. And for some things, that's a fantastic thing to have. It's a fantastic sort of vibe. For other things, maybe not so much. I think it's one of those things where it's just a very, very distasteful thing in most contexts, unless you're dealing with something like more avant-garde or more experimental sort of fusion stuff, or maybe that's just the kind of sound that you want on your solo kind of thing, which is nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. Let's talk about where this could be useful. So obviously, as I mentioned, like this kind of effect is really useful in like fusion sort of things, maybe like sci-fi kind of stuff. If you're looking at maybe writing something for maybe like a TV show, or maybe you want to play that sort of like style of like Doctor Who sort of like style sounds, you can create that kind of thing with the Gonkulator. It almost like turns the guitar into like almost like a sort of like a weird messed up synth. So on top of that, it's useful as like a solo boost in more of a funky context as well. I think it works really, really well. Maybe more like a proto-metal kind of thing. So if you're looking at playing a little bit of Black Sabbath or something like that, this would probably fit with a couple of those riffs quite well. In fact, let me show you what this sounds like playing a few classic riffs with the ring mod engaged with the distortion. Okay, so I'm just gonna six the ring mod again, and then I'm just gonna play a couple classic riffs for you. See what you think. So you can hear it adds a kind of like a weird sort of vibe to it, and basically what this does is adding a lot of what I'd refer to as harmonic information.
Bad man good. Bad man good. Bad man good. Bad man good.
It turns single notes into chords. So it's really useful for, as I said, those solo boosts and single note lines. So it adds like an extra texture, for example, like this kind of idea. So when you're playing higher up on the fretboard, you actually kind of like keep like a lot of sort of like a lot of that grit that you might be missing out on a little bit, and it adds like a little bit of extra flavor. It's kind of like cooking with spices. A little bit too much spice might not be great for some people, but for some people it's awesome. What this isn't good for is if you're playing a lot of like strum along chord stuff. So let me just try and play you some chords here. So maybe like let's go for like, I don't know, G, C, and D. Let's just go for some of that goodness. Maybe with a bit of the distortion turned down. So I turn on the distortion a bit and turn the ring mod up so you can hear what I mean. So if I put too much ring mod in this, so now I've got it at like sort of like a 9 o'clock, sorry 3 o'clock position. Okay.
And then a kind of mental torture. They walk in a small circle knowing a brick will drop on them at some point, and they can save themselves by confessing.
So yeah, as we're adding a lot of extra harmonic information, the more ring mod we blend in, you gotta be really, really careful with the idea of playing any chords with it. Even dyads, so 2-note chords or double stops, are gonna be a bit crunchy. But saying that, this could be really useful for more indie sort of like style shoegaze stuff. So if you're in like an indie band and you want to make like some more unique guitar parts, you blend in the ring mod a bit into this. So I'm just going to turn on the distortion quite a lot to about, I don't know, maybe, so if we 6 it and then bring it back a bit, so I'm rolling it back quite a bit so you can see. So here's a little indicator here, so, and then I'm going to roll the ring mod back to a similar sort of position, maybe a bit of extra ring mod, and see what we do. So for more experimental sounds, this is actually really nice, and it's a very creative pedal. You can do a lot of cool things with it. It's worth spending a bit of time with it though. Like when I first turned this on, I was like, how am I going to use this sound? And then the more I messed around with it, the more I played about with it, the more I actually just had fun with the pedal. So, fun factor, yes, it's like one of the funnest pedals I've ever tried out. The rest of it, down to the sound and everything like that, is down to your personal preference, what you like as a player, and what you're doing with the guitar and what you're doing in your overall sound. This thing, you can purchase it from WM Guitars for £129. And I think that's actually really good money for this kind of pedal. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck. You're getting a great distortion pedal on its own. You're getting a very, very unique sound, and you can blend it. There's a lot of different ways you can use this, and I prefer this to a lot of the ring mods out there that I've tried out personally. This has been a fantastic one, and it's very good value for money compared to spending really, really big bucks on what you could out there. Apart from that, this video's running long enough, so I'm so sorry, Ryan, for the editing on this. But I'll see you all later, and we'll run into each other on the next demo, I'm sure. Bye-bye. Remember to like and subscribe.